Sadly, I am the stereotype. I'm a 6'5" dreadhead, and I've been on 3 basketball teams since I could remember existing on the planet Earth. I first thought I was gonna be a basketball player because of a bald dude dropping 81 points on the Toronto Raptors. My perception of the world has been ruled over me in ways I can't explain. On basketball courts, I was called Chief Keef. However, I didn't really see myself in O-Block shoes and switches until Let It Shine on Disney Channel aired. Watching the main protagonist, R-Truth, be a loser in the background, but an amazing talent who, at the end, gets the girl by being himself, was definitely very dorky of me to relate to. However, the ways in which I saw life performed in the skin in which I'm situated in, it may be purposefully misleading. They dropped another diss track.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Tell me it was Kendrick.
So
this is not Kendrick.
And you just always
It's
want to
2025, Turk. Where have you been?
Live where you ain't talked about me. I ain't talked about you in how many days?
I was gonna come back for more, you dumb, dirty.
Oh my god, question mark. Nope. Can't wreck a home. That was really bad.
It's safe to say rap battles are the hot topic of 2020's art. This display of linguistic nuance, intricately crafted to highlight the other's flaws, ever deepened by sonnets of accusations, has captivated the world with its hype spectacle.
I want to perform their favorite song
of the public eye.
Yeah, that song.
The artists pitted up against each other, performed to a crowd of onlookers. Onlookers who form a judicial court of contingency.
On a Tuesday, bro!
Judging their degradations accordingly. The stakes? Pride, honor, artistic merit, livelihoods, family. I mean, the winner is guaranteed a glaze session to defy time.
Kendrick Lamar.
Dre, what's up?
TDE.
Oh, it's a black-owned label, and I wanted to carry on that legacy.
SZA.
He's such a genius, and he's part of his genius is like him being so elusive, and so mysterious, and I love it. I don't know what's going on as much as you don't know what's going on.
Williams.
But it ended with a crip walk celebration.
Man, I did not crip walk like that at Wimbledon.
It's inappropriate, just a dance we do in California.
Ooh, I would have been.
And everybody that danced on the field, everybody that produced it, everybody that booked this, everybody who shot it on cameras.
Call Drake a pedophile.
Everybody in the room who sung A minor at the same time.
That's why we came.
All of you are petty. I don't want to hear shit from anybody else.
Wait, what the? Wait, he dropped! Kendrick dropped! Kendrick dropped!
But the loser, equally and oppositely, how do the white boys say it? Jack shit.
I feel like this guy thinks he's like above people.
Keeping in the spirit of hip-hop, usually these two combatants have something to prove. Who's the greater artist? Whose spectacle, limelight, rhythm, wordplay, stature, or relevance would supersede the others? In the verbal war which would occur. However, today's case study of a rap battle is not for an implication of culture that one of these artists embody. It's not for the honor of first. And one of them's actually... Yeah. One of them, yeah. Also, there are 2 Caucasians if you didn't see that. 2 white women with black accents. 2 of them. 2. I'd say rap in the modern day is in a weird stage in its contextual history. Rap is a byproduct of the art movement of hip-hop as a whole, similarly to how a branch is a part of a tree. It's a grander conversation of artistic intent. Quote, an art movement is a tendency or a style of art with a particularly specified objective and philosophy that is adopted and followed by a group of artists during a specific period that may span from a few months to years or maybe even decades. Rap is kind of like a lily pad. And for this metaphor, imagine the waters that lily pad sits on being like those North Sea TikToks, like, yo. These metaphorical waters being so turbulent, the lily pad might be thrown about, maybe torn, ripped, or tattered. Now, if that lily pad was able to write stories, what would it tell? Like many movements, the lily pad representing rap has been historically defined by the waters surrounding. I mean, have you ever heard of Afeni Shakur and how Tupac almost never came to be? See, rap's timeline is something like this. We're going to be filling this timeline up with influential figures of prominence in order to show you how the art movement of hip-hop went from Harlem to Alabama, but not like Alabama soul food, collard greens, gumbo, cornbread, like Alabama white hood Barker, like Alabama. Yes, hip-hop is a conglomerate of influences. However, examining artists in their respective time periods may shine light on the development of hip-hop as a culture. It's also pretty paramount to our mission, so strap up. See, I have no problem with Danielle Bregoli or an Alabama Barker having competitive spirit, especially in an atmosphere of rap. That's very normal to have. After all, that is what a lot of the art movement of hip hip-hop was built on initially. From the literal jump of while it was developing in Harlem, there'd be DJ battles, back and forths with 8 spinning records in 4 hands in front of a judging audience. If you watch Tupac's movie Juice, you might have seen this taking place with his friend at the time. Some would even say DJs are kind of responsible for starting the movement of hip-hop.
People forget that the DJ is the backbone of hip-hop. That's where it all started. DJ spinning that party.
Key figures like DJ Kool Herc also did this by utilizing the competitive spirit of artistry present in his community.
When Kool Herc gave a party, everybody be there.
1970s? The 1970s were the launching point of hip-hop in community, and DJs were always the must-have at a function. In fact, what we know as the word rapper, as we see in Danielle Bregoli and Alabama Barker's case, is a decades-long deterioration of its initial connotation.
People use the terms interchangeably, rap with hip-hop, whereas hip-hop is the bigger culture, rap is something you do.
Initial rappers, which came out of the starting points of hip-hop, like Rakim, would call 1970s artists in hip-hop something more like MCs, and for his reasons.
Distinction between an MC and a rapper, you know, to me, it's kind of simple. I think an MC is a little more witty.
Rakim also embodied the same ego a lot of these MCs would go to war over.
I think rappers are more like, you know, party rappers, you know what I mean, bounce records and things like that. But I think a MC, man, what makes an MC is his word play and the way he puts words together, the way he uses different rhythms, and I think we need a little more of that in the game right now, because there's, you know, a lot of party rap going on right now.
The spectacle of back and forths between MCs, the TNT which just needed a catalyst, was already present when you were given the title MC. You were supposed to be elite at your craft, and you were supposed to earn that title, proving who's the better lyricist. Developed and grew through key battles like Nas and Jay-Z boiling over with the famous line, Now these rap battles were homophobic, dependent on a strong male archetype of stature, and outright just black mask adjacent, you just really wouldn't get, especially in the social landscape they were released in. Some of these lines have aged horribly, but back then this line was meant to highlight the stature of relevance to culture, and Nas brought in confliction to a Jay-Z.
You know, it's just music, like it's just us being creative at competitive at what we do.
Like the war of words between two of the city's biggest music stars, the king of Brooklyn's Marcy Projects, Jay-Z, versus the poet of Queensbridge, Nas. Now it's a battle that's the latest in the tried and true tradition of hip-hop, and as you're about to see, as competition often does, it brought out the best lyrically between Nas and Jay-Z.
See, Jay-Z was a then bosoming young talent signed by the industry of Rockefeller, while Nas just released one of the most influential albums of all time as a debut.
The fuse was lit at New York's radio station Hot 97's 2001 Summer Jam. The long-festering rivalry between Jay-Z's Rockefeller camp and QB's finest blew up on stage when Jay debuted The Takeover.
These two rookies going for each other's throats also signified a milestone in the dominance of industry-backed artists. And I know Kendrick and Drake was interesting as hell, but on the timeline you could also throw in Juice Crew vs Biggie Down Productions, MC Search vs MC Hammer, Kool Moe Dee vs LL Cool J, Ice Cube vs NWA, and famously Tupac vs Biggie. And this is one I want to emphasize, because this one's important. From the 90s to the 2000s, Tupac and Biggie were art leaders in the history of rap. This dynamic, coinciding with the competitive history of hip-hop, led them to take jabs at each other from time to time, although they were reportedly pretty cool.
They always say rap is destroying itself because of, like I told you before, the situations with Pac or Snoop, you know what I'm saying? Where niggas is just being real niggas, and they just so much in the media, it's just making people think like, oh, rap music, and this, I mean, niggas is trying to eat.
However, egos do as what egos do, culminating in one of the most famous lines of all time.
You claim to be a player, but I your wife.
The residue of this conflict can be felt with the prevalence of West Coast music in the 2000s taking the mainstream, with figures like Snoop Dogg doing a California Girls with Katy Perry. However, remember, a big part of West Coast rap was seen in the same lily pad of black art.
It's interesting how hip-hop rap music in the beginning, or a song like Grandmaster Flash's The Message, where basically they were saying, you know, it's like a jungle sometimes. I wish, you know, I wonder how I keep from going under. The whole of what that song was basically saying, look, these are the problems here. You know, and here we are 10 years or plus later. The problems are still there, and the intensity of the music has built to the no hope, the I don't give attitude. How did we get from from Grandmaster Flash, the message, to where we are now in hip-hop.
Tupac was as much a frog situated on a platform of culture, coaxed by the same waters, influenced by the social actions of black people before him.
Again, you have to be logical. You know, if I know that in this hotel room they have food every day, and I'm knocking on the door every day to eat, and they open the door, let me see the party, let me see like them throwing salami all over I mean, just like throwing food around, but they're telling me there's no food in here. You know what I'm saying? Every day. I'm standing outside trying to sing my way in. You know what I'm saying? We are hungry, please let us in.
Black art, because of a lifelong experience of these storms, has also been defined by its ingenuity in the face of degradation, shifting appearance as the times came and went. In fact, Tupac's mother was a member of the Black Liberation Movement. At the same time as the Jim Crow laws ravishing the South, local chapters of the Panthers, often led by women, focused attention on community survival programs.
And my mother put work in. Do you hear me? My mama was a gun packing. What I'm talking about for you, excuse me. But my mama put in work, you know, to be laying up in the room cracked out. I got disdain for a lot of my. You feel me? And that's why I'm telling y'all, I got to be serious. If we gonna struggle, the struggle got to come from our heart. It can't come because we looking to it from a king back then. It got to come because I'm looking at you and you look goddamn good to me and you my sister. And I ain't finna let none of these crackers take you down. You feel me? It got to come like that. It got to come from my heart.
And we can thank these groups for organizing free breakfast programs for 20,000 children each day, as well as free food programs for families and the elderly. They sponsor schools, legal aid offices, clothing distribution, local transportation, and health clinics. Also, sickle cell testing centers in several cities. These activities provided concrete aid to low-income communities and drew support for the Panthers. However, groups like the Black Panther Party came to be seen by the government as terrorist groups. In the same way, rap was being degraded in the public zeitgeist using anti-black rhetoric of, you know, the kids being gangster YN people, and it's inciting the youth. Black social movements aiming to help people materially were also being attacked by the FBI. You could say Tupac and his mother lived through two very different forms of racism in two very different genres. One very artistically and one entrenched in community. Tupac's mother, Afeni Shakur's sentiments with the Black Panther Party would lead to her arrest in 1969 for allegedly planning coordinated bombings and rifle attacks on police stations and offices in New York City. A very hefty allegation for something that never happened. The youngest of the group at age 22, Afeni faced a possible 300-year sentence if convicted. She was the first for whom the Black Panther Party raised bail so that she could help raise more money to have the others released. Her cross-examination revealed that undercover police officers who had infiltrated the Black Panther Party had not actually witnessed any criminal activity. The Washington Post wrote that Afeni demolished the case and the Panther 21 were acquitted in May 1971. She gave birth to Tupac 1 month later. The material actions faced in the social strife of America led for a Tupac to be born. If Black Panthers were not raising bail to help their fellow comrades, there would not be a generation of mothers who'd influence a Tupac in this world. And on the other side, Biggie. As much of that guy as Tupac was, he was also that guy.
When someone put on Hypnotize, the whole place erupted.
I'm sure we've all heard the song. But this was after Biggie's come up. Being raised in the center of hip-hop's first initial boom, Biggie was one of the first generations of youth that grew up with rapping as a culture. Him being able to cross racial lines through lyrics, telling stories of personal strife, oppositional to Tupac, seems like it doesn't make sense. But rap is a place where culture naturally comes to clash. However, both of their contributions were, one, affected by the past and influential for the future. In this sense, we can chart a history of rap surrounding these figures in the same way we could line up the civil rights era time, contrasting and comparing experience from a social standpoint to an artistic one. And this added a layer of cultural relatability to a lot of black people. It's literally where the term culture comes from. But in 2025, culture is really just a word for people deciding they just kind of just want a black aesthetic. However, ideations and histories of black culture in 2025 that make a Danielle Bregoli versus Alabama Barker have shifted so far from its centerpiece, it's like trying to use pennies to define gold. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, black art in a public zeitgeist is defined by its connotation by a majority which hasn't experienced it. Hip-hop hasn't been the only black art movement restricted by racism. The fact of the matter is, all of life essentially kind of was, from your baseball leagues, to your schools, to the way that you drink your water. This is also central to the focus of Minstrelsy. Country's resurgence was felt in 2025's stage with Beyonce's latest album.
And the Grammy goes to Cowboy Carter.
There's also black artists like Shabuzi, revered as genre bending, even though country is black. We'll find that the same perception leads to this performance of minstrelsy to be a tangible, idealistic, normal in people's eyes even. Like, try asking yourself, is this black or am I actually dumb?
Black folks were playing hockey since the late 1800s, and it would consist of sons and grandsons of the enslaved who found refuge in British Canada, which outlawed slavery before the US.
There's an objective social normativity society is situated on, which assumes black people should take on certain vestiges of a monolith of perception. But country stars have defied these same restrictions of self that have carried on to the 21st century. The power of erasure, however, comes with the fact that country, still in a public view, is seen as a white art. This degradation overlaps and defines a black artist's life through eyes outside of its own. You know, there's black people in fields where black people have never been before, like video essays, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
That feels that didn't exist.
Thank you for hopping on again and having this talk with me. I've noticed from like the 2000s to the 2020s, there was a huge jump in like cultural connotation, language, nuance, and like worldly understanding as it pertains to like hip hop and black art as a whole on the internet. You know, there's black people in fields where black people have never been before, like. But in connotations to rap, I've never gone outside and went to a concert to see a local poppin' artist that wasn't bringing in over like 1 million streams. You know what I'm saying? So how has the experience of living with hip hop and blackness as a culture changed for you with the internet and over the years?
Specifically when it comes to blackness, you know, every new generation comes a new experience of blackness, right? So for instance, once the internet became widely accessible, I was able to see that transition from just not only the way that that culture is consumed, right? But just the way that we interact. For instance, my house, we didn't get internet until like the early 2000s, you know, growing up, you know, black and poor, you know what I mean?
I didn't know that because we didn't get internet until like 2000s. Like,
right.
Yeah, so yeah.
Like I said, every new generation has a new interpretation of blackness that in some ways builds on what came before. I think that today, because of the nature of discourse, because of the nature of the way that we talk, it is largely influenced by the fact that the lion's share of our interaction, you feel me, they don't have, and we might get into this, you might bring this up later on, you know, there are really no third places left, you know what I mean? Unless you like go to church, or unless, you know, you go to mosque, or you go to synagogue, or whatever, you go to any sort of place of worship. There are, you know, skate parks are closing down, malls are closing down, you understand what I'm saying? So it changes the way that we interact with one another. There's, at least as far as I can tell, there's less reception, not just from younger people, but from older people as well, is that everybody just sort of goes into their own corner and sequesters themselves in this little echo chamber over here where I can just hear my own thoughts and my own whatever repeated back to me. I feel like Gen Z and Gen Alpha that's coming up, their interpretation of blackness is no less valid than what ours was, you feel me, in the 90s and in the 2000s and in the 2010s. But I do feel like there is a bit of a disconnect just based off of, you know, the way that discourse, don't nobody want to be told nothing. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is just sort of waiting for their own chance to speak. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice in that, because there's much that folk my age can learn from, you know, folk your age, and vice versa. There's a lot that can be learned about what it was like, what it meant to be black. You dig? In an age before, you know, social media just kind of came in and said, all right, blackness is this, and then everybody just sort of went with that. You know, this is something that I talk about a lot. Like, for instance, when I was growing up, there was no biracial discourse. You understand what I'm saying? There was none of that in the 90s, right? It was nigga is nigga. You feel me? Like, there wasn't none of that for black grandparents, none of it. You know what I'm saying? Halle Berry was black. Mariah Carey was black. All of these people, Meghan Markle, even though she ain't got, all of these people that you look at now, oh, well, you know, that's not black. That's not, nah, nigga, that was black. Without that, that's just it. You understand what I'm saying? Until you said otherwise. I think the way that we interpret what blackness means is very divided. But one thing that hasn't changed, I think, is, you know, and you just talked about this, is the performance of blackness, right? Is that mainstream culture has a certain idea of what it means to be black, right? And if you do not perform to that, then you're behind the 8 ball, right? Doechii is a unicorn, you know what I mean? Because her performance of black femininity, there is, you know, sexual elements to it, but that's not what it revolves around. That's not what her artistry is. It's not built around her sexuality, right? And for me growing up, outside of the neo-soul movement, which was kind of like, part of the reason why neo-soul even became a thing was it was a reaction to that. It was a reaction to, you know, the hypersexualization of blackness in mainstream music in particular, right? And so it was all about, you know, getting back to fundamentals, getting back to, you know, for lack of better phrasing, the roots of black music. You know, we're going to go back, we're going to refer back to, you know, to soul. We're going to refer back to, you know, to gospel, to jazz, to electronica, and to rock even, all of these historically black things. And we're going to make, you know, our artistry the focus as a direct a reaction to what we see going on in mainstream music today. And I say that to say that outside of that movement, you look at it, and that's one thing that has never changed about the way that blackness is understood and thereby is consumed by the mainstream. And that is that when your performance of blackness does not fit into a particular mode, when your performance of blackness, that's why, you know, Kanye was such a, nobody thought that Kanye was going to be Kanye when he came out, because, you know, he was, you know, coming out wearing, you know, pink polos, and he had a little Louis Vuitton backpack, and that is not the way that black masculinity
and it's
is
so
depicted.
weird, because like the way I remember Kanye is like him going on that and doing that clip and doing that
25 feet of water where there was once city streets and thriving neighborhoods.
They portray us in the media. If you see a black family, it says they're looting. See a white family, it says they're looking for food. And you know, because most of the people, if I was down there, and those are my people down there, so anybody else.
That's right. You're not Hitler. You're not a Nazi. You don't deserve to be called that and demonized.
Well, I see good things about Hitler also.
The kind of normalization of everyday interaction on our phones has made pop culture almost instantly affect reality at times. I mean, 2 years ago, Gyat, Skibbity, and Riz, they weren't words. These are...
Your Riz mad lit on God or not?
Metro Boomin, make it boom.
Language moves quicker than translations of the Bible. Trends move quicker. How much times have you sent a reel your friend has already seen? This also changes our interpersonal relationships. I mean, off the internet, have you ever like dapped somebody up, used the word type, hit a little TikTok dance, bought lotion, maybe specifically like African gold lotion? If you didn't buy this lotion, I hope you have a bad Black History Month. Well, you, my friend, you may have performed blackness. Maybe because a trend told you so, maybe because Duke Dennis convinced you would look cooler, maybe because you have a black friend, even. In a broader viewpoint, maybe. Even. See, in the form of trends, the algorithm has codified this kind of performance as cool. Hit Kendrick's Super Bowl dance and land on Jimmy Fallon. But on top of that, the digitization of blackness has solidified figures of stature in an algorithm. When a white kid thinks of a black person, they might think of Kai Cenat and LeBron James. That's sad. Which makes black influencers and online positions of stature a hefty position to embody, really. You know, in Big 2025, from the way we speak as a grading of TikTok language actually being AAVE, mannerisms in a form of black interaction with people mimicking Doechii, Glorilla, or Megan with her whole hot girl summer thingy. I remember when everyone was on that just because it was Megan saying that. That was wild. Had a whole Popeyes commercial because of it. Had her own hot sauce, hot chili sauce. I mean, when it comes down to it, The whole TikTok algorithm is really just black music. This is all influenced by the performance of blackness. Now, this isn't a video to say white people can't be influenced by black culture. However, I'd like to put a magnifying glass on the performance of blackness as it relates to a digital sense. As we're in a very new era, seeing this many black people on a phone is a very new thing. But defining the experience of blackness, I'm coming to find, isn't as easy as it may seem. One thing's for certain, however, it is a good time to be black. The soft power of the internet being taken over by influences of black figures on Twitch, music, and TikTok does a lot for me. I don't know, I do a little giggle. I'm like, we would. Our two protagonists, Danielle Bregoli and Alabama Barker, know that very well. Alabama Barker, Caucasian reveal, yeah. We're not gonna spend too much time on old girl, but it's important to clarify how participating in an experience of blackness is viable in a digital world. The Kardashians know it, and Alabama Barker is a part of this selfie clan. She's kind of like a Jesus of pseudo anti-blackness, who loved the culture so much she traded in her cracker pass for assemblage of the I can't do this. Yeah, Drake versus Kendrick Lamar is very easy to discern. These have been solidified rappers for the last decade. We've been pitting them up against each other since we were children. I mean, have you seen all these memes? These are two very like popular artists in their own niches, and pitting them up is a very real experience of black culture. But if we're really being honest, either way, these two rappers still get like millions and hundreds of millions of streams. And even though he was publicly called a pedophile, I still heard my favorite femme content creator twerking to Drake the other day, that Nokia song. And I heard my friend sing the lyrics to Controlla on a Discord call, recounting a memory we had when I was blacked out in a club when I was 18. Yes, Kendrick becomes a stature of prominence at the Super Bowl, but the running theme of the video is don't let your eyes deceive you. If I were to say one nice thing before we start this whole thing, however, Alabama Barker really embodies the spirit of like her name. I can feel the historical accuracy. I can feel it. On first sight of Miss Barker's YouTube channel, we can assume she's a makeup guru, so this random rap video looks a bit out of place. But there's a function to this disorganization, okay? However, I do find it funny that even Bad Baby critiqued her like online performance of blackness. It's like the Spider-Man v Spider-Man with two Spider-Man pointing at each other. That's them two Spider-Man. Surround yourself with blacks but still ain't invited to the cookout. Crack a bitch. However, we've all participated in trends, right? Remember the dab? Sticky situation. Discombobulation. I even copy Kevin Gates' emotes sometimes. We can do the rest of the video without a hair tie. What's unique about the Kardashians, though, is the way they're able to make their performance of blackness a kind of digital social media empire. What Kim Kardashian did was like biblical levels of like Snow Bunny evil. He was evil. Loosely based off of an influencing niche carved out by Paris Hilton, one of the first public figures of America, before TikTok would give the Pandora's box of chance to people around the world. She was kind of Kim Kardashian's first blink of success too. Well, no, Kim Kardashian was like a Nepo baby, but like in sense of like socialite era Hollywood. Yeah. But it's important to note that Paris Hilton was one of the first figures of influence who'd be subjected to pursuing mobs of paparazzi and media publicity in the Age of the 2000s magazine. Quote, Kardashian and Hilton's friendship goes all the way back to preschool. Both of the Hollywood superstars grew up in Los Angeles. Paris and I have been friends since we were kids. The Keeping Up with the Kardashians alum shared in an interview on the Today Show in April 2008. Their friendship was first documented on Hilton and Nicole Richie's reality show, The Simple Life, which began airing in 2003. The Confessions of an Heiress author was a client of Kardashian's, who had a closet organizing business. Paris Hilton's fame consisted of her relevance to wealth. Her dad owns Clinton Hotels. And if you're wondering, yeah, the character London Tipton, that was kind of based off of... That's kind of cool though, hey, like that's... I didn't know that. I didn't know that till I researched it. I'm so sorry if it was all Paris Hilton utilized the dumb blonde persona to her liking, meaning her relevance came from a social landscape which saw her lavish lifestyle in a rich white aesthetic as laughable. A lot of films like White Chick's Scary Movie were in the business of also playing off this trope in the 2000s. I mean, the dumb blonde has been seen in the media longer than like I can remember even, like, yeah. So Paris Hilton embodying something that was already there with clips like these would come to define her soft power. Moments like her viral 18th birthday party still gain relevance in the modern day with over 96 million posts on TikTok. Kim Kardashian, situated on her right basically since kindergarten and a later part of her illustrious career, saw all this and turned into caca. Everyone says Kim Kardashian is talentless, but I think there's a skill to working a selfie like a whip in the digital exploitation of black people. There's a skill to that one. Millions of it. Kim Kardashian would do almost everything Paris Hilton did to a T, on top of like even like the state. But Kim Kardashian lived in a time where hip hop and rap culture were becoming more and more relevant in a public setting. The 2000s were when glimpses of stars like Kanye, Jay-Z, Eminem, 50 Cent, Nicki Minaj, Trey Songz, Rihanna, Drake, and a lot of popular moguls who solidified the performance of blackness by being bastions of cultures themselves. This meant that people were more empowered to have a unique, you know, you had R&B black people, you had pop black people, you had hard rock black people. Kim Kardashian was like loving V Wade of like digital zeitgeist of the world. Because if you really think about it, the same kind of exploitation happened when the Grammys were still categorizing black art as urban. And like, there's kind of an idea of uniformity in a lot of these hip hop genres. And the 2000s churned out a lot of stars that combated those ideas. We forget that Drake directly did in the form of a light-skinned artist. We were like, oh, this light-skinned person acting hard, this weird.
I like from the day Wayne met me to now, I haven't changed anything about myself. He met me. Don't ever try and be me or anybody else. Don't ever go get tattoos. You don't have to dress any different, you know, because
people like Nicki Minaj too were also defining black femininity from a quirky girl perspective of the MySpace era.
The pony represents your favorite rapper's face. Because you know that's my AKA, sit on your favorite rapper face. And sit on your favorite female rapper face, because I don't discriminate.
She was like an old Deutschie to a reflection of femininity at the time.
I'm his mistress. I'm Nikki Lewinsky's mistress. Okay, pause. Like I said, he's still immune to DVT. He said, I got to have that girl shout it. Hey, yo, shout it. Yo, I want to meet Nick and shout it.
Being situated in the group Young Money, which would go on to pump out musical legends like Drake and Lil Wayne. Kim Kardashian decided this art movement and broader absorption of black culture was a nice paycheck. No, for real, she made a lot. Damn. See, Kim's family was always a little kind of rich. Kris Jenner, which is Kim Kardashian's mom, is a product of Kris and Robert Sr.'s relationship. Product of a relationship. That almost feels unethical to say, but I don't really care. Robert Sr. was the guy that was part of the dream team that got O.J. Simpson out of his murder case. And knowing how big that case was, that 30 million net worth was saying something. Now, this is 2000s. After meeting a whole bunch of people through Paris Hilton, the generational snow yeti of America before Taylor Swift, Kim Kardashian at 19 years old married Damon Thomas. I truly believe there's like a quest log that pops up when some people, fetishizers, are born, and Kim Kardashian just accomplished the first quest line. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the 30th TBH. You don't know what people do in their free time. I don't want to judge. You can have maybe 100. I enjoy like 200. Her second relationship with Ray J wasn't long term, but what came out of it was the start of the digital age of gooning, basically. One of the most popular pieces of adult content that has ever circulated the internet. Kim basically started like black, like someone got to run her a royalty check. Kim's mom, Kris, decided to capitalize on this blast of publicity by making the show Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Yes, Keeping Up with the Kardashians was made because a mother wanted to exploit her daughter's take. But at the end of the day, chase a bag. That's what I mean. At the end of the day, I just mean like get your money. If I were to get like millions of dollars off of one, I would drop it too. You would do it too for a check. Keeping Up with the Kardashians became an American staple and allowed the Kardashians to then sell themselves as a product. In the same way as Paris Hilton, but now with the added soft power of snow bunny connotation. Now, what the Kardashians like to do is focus their marketing on whatever is trending at the time. And slowly but surely, they realized the black exploitation market in America is the biggest trend that they could get their hands on. They started using themselves as kind of muses of blackness too, getting BBLs. Quote, the inaugural episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which debuted on Entertainment in 2007, begins with an irreverent domestic scene. Kim Kardashian, the undisputed protagonist of the show, rummages through the fridge as she's teased by her family for the size of her posterior. I think she's got a little junk in her trunk, says Kris Jenner, the family's matriarchs and mama. She calls the daughter's butt jiggly as Khloe Kardashian chimes in from the kitchen table. Kim always has an... I'm done reading. I'm not reading it. Or I'm so sorry. Something that Paris Hilton would even come to comment about. The public got very obsessed with the size of Kim's posterior. The This Is Paris podcast host dissed Kim Kardashian in a radio show interview in 2008. I would not want Kim's butt. It's gross. It reminds me of cottage cheese in a big trash bag. Now for comparison, take a Megan Thee Stallion and compare her to Kylie Jenner, for example. With their performance performances of subjective trends or blackness, you could say, the way people comment, the way they're ideated, the way they're treated in the media. I mean, throughout Megan's come up in the industry, she was constantly berated as a man, and to this day you can still find comments in her section calling her one. Black women are devalued for the same thing the Kardashians are kind of being praised for here. Kylie Jenner, who is a white woman, can contort her body any way she wants and not be bashed by the media and fans in the same way that a Megan will. The lips that her whole brand is based on is an exploitative tactic on Afrocentric features. Lip injections are not Kylie's cosmetics. But slowly climbing up the beanstalk, Kim Kardashian was soon situated with Kanye West, and I feel so sorry for you, Kim Kardashian. Oh god. This one I could be like, oh my god, I get it. Whoa, wow. Scary. However, the extensive history of the whole Kardashian dating situation is also, you can guess, extremely black. Khloe started dating NBA players Lamar Odom, Rick Fox, Rashard McCants, and James Harden, who was arguably thicker. Basketball star Matt Kemp, a black baseballer actually. That's like pretty cool. That's like a shiny. I've never really met much except Lonnie, I'm gonna be honest with you. And French Montana, who's like a black latte. Kylie started dating at the time actor Jaden Smith and also rappers Lil Twist, Tyga, Party Next Door, and Travis Scott. Kendall Jenner started dating race car driver Lewis Hamilton, another shiny. NBA player Jordan Clarkson, Blake Griffin, and Devin Booker, also rapper A$AP Rocky. You might think this isn't harmful, but this is also a blatant fetishization. To prefer a whole race of men is usually just because of a sexual or, you know, explicit connotation that the race presents. However, I want to situate it more in the marketing fetish that's rooted in the exploitation of black culture, from their body image to their men to their kids. And for our first contestant, this is where we land. To the next in line. Alabama Barker mimics everything the Kardashian brand has created throughout the years. Essentially, she's a second generation Nepo baby. It's funny because in the same way Alabama Barker plays skip rope with the performance of blackness, she really shows the world that personality and free will is a choice. And I love that. As a child star, she released music that reminiscent of her stature, and then started fetishizing black men in rap. They always have this heel turn for some reason. It's weird. However, one thing I want to say is I don't want to expose every instance of what Alabama Barker has done since she's been like 14 to 19 throughout all of this. She does follow in the footsteps of the Kardashian method, and they use black men and culture as skipping rope, so you can guess. Moving on. When it comes to the performance of blackness, what Alabama Barker proves is the repeatability of this process. I'm predicting she's gonna end up using this visage to her advantage in the same way a Kardashian utilizes black culture, and then ridding it, you know, a decade later. However, Paris Hilton is still a prominent figure in the public zeitgeist. The Kardashians and Alabama Barker will shed and absorb with time and trends, but we know that performance is a choice. However, the history surrounding Danielle Bregoli and Alabama Barker prove the significance of post-infiltration and the attention algorithm as viable in hip-hop. Alabama, representing an avatar exploitation with so many people on the internet, can be expanded as a macro. Alabama Barker is kind of a genre. We can look at her subjective interactions and come to an overarching statements on how this veil of kind of adolescence allows for the soft power of the performance of blackness to be utilized by people outside of it. And if you don't know what I mean about this, see, a peer-to-peer interaction is a conscious choice. Conscious attitudes of applicable behaviors are normalized within our social dynamics, right? You say bye, you say hi, but we have to remember that art isn't radical, therefore the performance of art may not be inherently radical. Also, hip-hop historically has been a display of black identity throughout the diaspora. It's why throughout the years it's so fun to engage with these rap battles. But I just told you that performing blackness wasn't a bad thing, then gave you 8 different white people who exploited it in nefarious ways. So I'm sorry, but bear with me, we about to jump into something better. I've since grown up a little bit and realized no matter what, a white percentage of viewers, especially in the modern day, encompass a huge portion of rap. I mean, there's people like Netspend I've never heard of that the youth are talking about. This is odd. This is odd to me. But nevertheless, being white brings a lot of nuance to the conversation of art surrounding the social feasibility of culture that it's curated from in a space of black art. However, when you begin looking at this timeline and placing it in the history of a broader conversation of social normativity, you'll actually realize this is a natural part of pop art culture being commodified into a modern form of content. But don't let your eyes deceive you. What you're seeing may be a very real clash of Alabama Barker and Danielle Bregoli's egos, in the same way Biggie and Tupac clashed all those years ago. So in a sense, are we saying that they're reflections of life and character as presented are a product of hip-hop culture, especially when they do this in a rap battle. The developmental history of hip-hop that has led to this point is a decades-long history of obfuscation, which, left untreated, has become a tumor. The same reason why you haven't heard of Tupac's mother or liberation fronts from the 90s is the same reason why you see Alabama Barker and Danielle Bregoli take the main stage. So let's recap here. Across cultural lines, 3 factors have remained true amongst the rap battles we saw. These people have been black, they've been men, and they've been black. Black twice because it's very significant here. Danielle Bregoli and Alabama Barker are very, not comparison of a lot of what we think of rappers in the modern day, you could say. So this poses a question. Is the rap battle's only value centered in the entertainment it can extract from an audience? Now, the actual reason for this battle, like if you missed it, how do I say this? Alabama Barker is accused of having cunnilingus with Danielle Bregoli's baby dad. I've come to call this the Caucasian kerfuffle. The Caucasian kerfuffle. The great kind of battle, the great battle of the Wiggers, where we see Danielle Bregoli, bastardized daughter of House Phil, cast a verbal spell on the MC, if you were so generous to call her that.
Hi guys, it's Alabama Barker here, and I'm back with another updated makeup tutorial.
Alabama, a media personality with close ties to the Kardashian family, sees herself dropping a diss track on YouTube against Danielle Bregoli, someone who does makeup reviews. This is a little weird. See, right? All is not well in the lands of snow. The utilization of perception plays a big factor in the dangers of snow bunny mind control. God save us from white girls with black sense. And to that, I'd argue that long since has a shred of decorum been situated in the zeitgeist of caucasity these two male matriarchs operate in. These two are cut from the same cloth, Danielle Bregoli and Alabama Barker. And whether they know it or not, they swapped appearance in place of placebo for a fleeting image of the same berry rooted in the records, history, and competitive spirit that sprouted out of Harlem all those years ago. If you don't get the metaphor at this point, this berry tree is black. And if you've heard Kendrick pre-beef, you might have heard a similar sentiment he stated. The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Kendrick Lamar. Question: do you feel there's a perception of culture able to be penetrated in a popular zeitgeist? For example, some like me would say that white artists like Ian, or even an influencer like Kim Kardashian, can make millions personifying a black woman or black man. See, hip-hop's art history has a little bit of a convoluted history with limelight, you could say, that stretches further back than the 70s. From folk to country to rock to hip-hop, there's always been an audience with white people for black art too. However, the involvement leads much to question. See, in the same way Bad Baby and Alabama Barker metaphorically become an image of culture, people would do in real time back then. This was called minstrelsy. Minstrelsy was the first uniquely American theatrical form, and one of the building blocks on which American music and entertainment is based. See, while an intercommunally brewing culture of music was developing in black communities, made from a history of passed down culture coming from generations of families fighting to preserve themselves in the midst of social anguish, there was also a sort of counterculture of the norm being racism, embedded in a stark dichotomy of relatability to white people at the time. It's basically academic for saying white people really liked racism. They really liked degrading black people to such degrees it seeped into their art. It was so weird. This was almost 200 years before Playboy Cardi would make rap cool to the youth. In this time, black art, now named country, but then a movement of artistry blossoming in the black community, was something to laugh at.
With an exhibition of eye-dazzling, leg-spraddling, foot-flapping fantasy, playing the bones at the same time, Mr. Glenn Turnbull, please the people.
Emmett Miller, who would go on to influence Hank Williams, Jimmy Rogers, Bob Willis, Milton Brown, Tommy Duncan, and Merle Haggard, was one of the most famous of these performers and credited as the founder of country music. Although country was already a genre in the art movement of musicians in the Black South, they didn't quite have the limelight that Emmett Miller did. Their clout was missing. This wasn't really the age of the internet. There was no phones. Radios were kind of your central means of control. And who did they prioritize? White artists. So those black sounds would seep into white art, but in a form of degradation. He introduced Southern sounds ripped off from a band member and went on to normalize the appearance of white faces in black art, all while in blackface. You could say he lived in the shadow of black folk all his life very successfully. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be inspired by culture. It's hard to hear black music and not baka dance. It's a baka curse. It's a curse. However, examining the nuance of entrapment that surrounds the genre of hip hop is interesting to me. In the same way the eyes of a white audience play a crucial role in our perception of Southern art, the new version of minstrelsy, digital minstrelsy, also allows for white artists to infiltrate a genre, remove black faces. Oh, well, actually they still kept them, but you know what I mean, like metaphorically, this like, yeah. You could say Danielle Bregoli and Alabama Barker are carrying on the same actions that the white country singers inspired by black Southern art did, but now just on a digital scale, hence digital minstrelsy. We have to note that the art movement of hip hop contained in the sweet berry, which carry its influences in the social feasibility of public appeal, has been around at this point in 2025 for almost 50 years, stemming from a racial and artistic history which is constantly buried under the obfuscation of its message. The history of co-option shows us that eventually degradation based on appearance will lead to co-option. Yes, hip-hop is still very much black in 2025. You know, here and there we've had little scares like little Jack Harlow's, but he went away pretty quickly. Like it was 1.5 summers actually. It wasn't that long. So let's be real. If we're emphasizing the reality of history surrounding rap in a historical setting, we have to understand black culture in the form of rap has lived through a lot. 50 bombastic years of earth, bruh. That's hell. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Some people have seen Hitler and Kai Cenat in the same reality. For context, 50 years ago, we were making the first pocket calculators. 50 years ago, the gaming industry as a whole, which has swallowed up generations of men, didn't exist. 50 years ago, we had the first elected black congressman to office. 50 years ago, no Wi-Fi. 50 years ago, no Vine. This was before Vine. It's old. Rap is unk. So we kind of have to refer to it in a little bit of an unk status type thing. It got a legacy. Remember that our culture movements are still affected by conversations of acceptable social behaviors met in our modern day. It's the reason why Beyonce and Lizzo have taken select words out of their songs and Glorilla too. Whereas all the way back then, Nas could just say all that to Jay-Z. Emmett Miller may not have been able to infiltrate in the way he did those 100 years ago in segregated era Georgia, where lynchings, the literal KKK, and social harm of black people were normal. But someone like Travis Barker or Kim Kardashian, who fashioned themselves in the aesthetics of modern day black culture while still representing a counter narrative or white appeal to the public, can hide themselves more easily when it comes to the co-option of black art. It was also only fairly recently that women started making visible splashes in the industry as faces of the industry, because taken, they were always there. DJ Kool Rec's sister was an organizer for all these parties and set DJ Kool with bigger and bigger opportunities.
This is my sister. She started me out, okay?
I'm the first hip-hop promoter. My back-to-school party that I gave, 1520 Cedric Avenue, August 11th, 1973. That was the birth of hip-hop.
Y'all forget about her a lot. And just like anything exposed to this world for decades at a time, as a cornerstone of popularity in a public setting, a position inside of rap, hip-hop, or black culture has now been coveted by the world. A lot of vultures, you could say. Vultures who have such a deep thirst, such a deep hunger, they feast on the vestiges or assemblages of this berry, which is, in fact, maybe in 2025 at this point, an imposter. No, we're not going to do that. However, even with histories of jealousy and disillusionment, it's been a colossal year for this berry of hip-hop, dominated by stars that prove this statement ever so more true. From Deutsche to Megan and Glorilla. So why now are we entertaining such trivialities from the Blanstein Bears, you may ask? Especially like Danielle Bregoli and Alabama Barker. Why is this video surrounding them? And to that I reply, there's a question. Blossoming into immediate reality about a vestige that these two are able to represent. That's so far removed from the bear. It's like watching a cancer spread from a news reporting room to the stage. And I'm going to be transparent about the outlandish title of this video and freaky reality coming forth. I can't stand the fact that this dialogue is allowable in a setting where people like No Name have been overlooked for like a good decade now. I believe the spectacle between Danielle and Alabama is derived from a continuum of restrictive agency, allowing for a back and forth for this to happen. See, there's cavities in the industry, you could say, but these cavities are systemic and ever so everlasting. We need to break them. Made from a neglect of art concerning black culture, femme musicians, an age of algorithmic retention, and a commodification of what hip-hop is. You know, in the last year, I really cherished seeing Deutsche's run and her speech at the Grammys. Been a minute. Maybe in media and movies, but like in real life, like a real win, like a real W, like a real album of the year. Like it's been... I can't even like name this spectacle which derails culture. Maybe I'm not seeing all that's not there the same way you guys are. You see, in this video, I want to dissect the tangibility of a rap battle in a very nerd, glasses up kind of way. AKA, why is this rap battle happening, but through a very different lens. Speaking through a timeline which sees benefactors of culture uplifted for an equivalency of self, which denigrates a view of artists who have melanin. I'd argue that a degree of normativity around what a femme rapper is made this beef, because in reality, what should we be looking at? To understand the situation as a whole, we need to look further into what this photo encompasses. Have we strayed too far from the warmth of culture, which has kept what we loved sacred? Are we doomed to feast in the rot of what once was, with these strewn over sensationals of back and forth between snow bunnies over baby daddies? Well, before we get to this question, firstly, we have to understand who these two people are in context to their fame and their stature. Act 1.
So tonight we're joined by Danielle Bregoli, aka Bad Baby, is a rapper, songwriter, and internet personality. After her iconic appearance on Dr. Phil, coining the viral phrase, "Cash me outside," how about that? She became the youngest rapper to appear on Billboard's Hot 100. Since then, Bregoli has released more music, starred in her own reality show, and launched a record label called Bad Music. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Bad Baby into our chamber tonight.
The case of the Caucasian cretins. In this timeline of rap, we've since already cycled through a substantial amount of history, framing rap as an art movement in a broader cultural zeitgeist of black normativity. But Alabama and Danielle in the year of 2025 have almost a decade of lore preceding them, surrounding a myriad of convoluted figures who contribute to this mess of a scenario. And in the case of Danielle Bregoli, we first met her as the Catch Me Outside girl on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube.
I don't behave disrespectful. I steal cars. I steal her credit card. I ain't gonna lie. There's no reason to lie. Everybody know already.
Now look, I learned about Bad Baby against my will. I, like many others, live in the public viewership of society. And for that reason, my watch history looks the way it does. Look at this. That's my For You page. My For You page was meant for me, uniquely. I might laugh at a dumb meme like that, and you might not. The conflicting nature of Danielle Bregoli, our first protagonist, is the convoluted history surrounding her come up. See, I, like many others, first saw Danielle Bregoli find her stardom with the Dr. Phil clip.
Did you say the hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes?
Yep.
Huh?
Catch me outside, how about that?
Now, clips in the modern day have gained relevance as an optimal way of expanding a creator's digital reach via the interactions it garnishes. Clips of Kai Cenat in 2025 receiving millions of views leads to, a little soft power. You now know this face because you see this face all the time. Who is that guy constantly always there? I might know a creator like Speed from the time he jumped over a Lambo, and somebody else may know him from barking at women. Both of these realities coexist at the same time. The obfuscating nature of clips is how they get removed from context. A lot of these contexts kind of make the scenarios,
Don't mind if I do.
Well, Sean Diddy Combs. Major new allegations today of sexual assault and exploitation by Combs.
I wouldn't.
In the 2000s, clips of viral content may have got you on Ellen, but in the 2010s when Danielle Bregoli found her first viral moment, it was because of her behavior. Like bad with a B, because because she spells her name like that.
I'm so sorry.
Behavior rooted in Dr. Phil's entertainment conglomerate. This is like fake therapy. This is like being gaslit by your boyfriend, but on stage public humiliation ritual, but for little children. Exploitative and predatory. Dr. Phil is like 60 and all these children that come in are like 8 years old. It's so wild. So Danielle Bregoli's come up wasn't as natural as you think. Let's dive into the context of this Catch Me Outside clip.
Did you say the hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes?
Yep. Catch me outside, how about that?
Huh?
Catch me outside, how about that?
Bad Baby is a byproduct of a continued exploitative history Dr. Phil has been able to create with the pseudo-intellectual playground of therapy. Quote, at-risk youth often face difficulties during their most formative years on top of the typical stresses of growing up. When a parent feels they can no longer control or help their struggling teen, they often seek additional resources and are often referred to long-term residential treatment by way of online sites, school counselors, and an educational consultant. Many residential treatment centers claim to rehabilitate defiant teens and instill strict values using militaristic and unproven methods. Behavior modification was developed from B.F. Skinner's theory of operant conditioning. When this theory is taken outside of clinical boundaries, based heavily on punishment, and applied to a population of vulnerable, already traumatized youth, this can quickly become a recipe for abuse, neglect, and a climate of fear. Without access to report this abuse, children will endure months, if not years, of these tactics, and many more cruel and unusual punishments. We also find that wilderness programs have their own brand of harsh conditions that compound these tactics with an environment that is designed to break them down into desperation of survival mode. In Dr. Phil's entertainment farm for children, Danielle Bregoli and a bunch of other women were abused. She's since come out and made a statement against the farm's abuse in an 8-minute video titled #BreakingCodeSilence.
I was 13 years old when I went to Turnabout Ranch. I feel like it's very important for me to speak on this because I kept my mouth shut for so long. That's the thing with these places is you have no evidence. You don't have a phone there. They don't have cameras there. Like, there's no evidence of none of this. And obviously all the staff is in on it. A young lady, her name is Hannah, she recently spoke out because while she was there, she was sexually assaulted, and then when she reported that she was assaulted, she was punished by staff. So, Dr. Phil, I'm going to give you from now till April 5th to issue an apology, not only to me, but to Hannah and any other child that you sent to Turnabout or any other program like this. And if you don't, I'm gonna handle things my way.
However, before then, she'd have her share in the limelight, mostly in degradation. Her outlandish behavior opened questioning about the social feasibility of her actions, to say the least. This all plateaued with a content creator named Ricegum, who would prophetically start Danielle Bregoli's rap career in a public setting. For those who don't know who Ricegum is, see, Ricegum was a part of the early ages of influencer culture.
So I had to do this. All your fans are 10, they don't know what they are doing. Rolling up your sleeve.
Without him, we wouldn't have had the rap battles of 2016's YouTube. Remember Jake Paul's Everyday Bro or Logan Paul's MLK verse?
Or Vagon. You make me so wet with your reckless spending. You gave my little brother standing on his own 2 feet.
Ricegum was given world star coverage, made Billboard 100, helped shape FaZe into the entertainment Goliath it is in the modern day, and pioneered rap as a form of entertainment in the form of 10-minute commentary videos.
You guys were moving from Vine to YouTube. You guys, it was the big Vine invasion.
I don't know how many people actually know this, but Cardi, the way I met Cardi,
right where we left off, about Cardi's birthday. Told you guys about that in the last vlog. T-Wop, roll the clip.
Yo, Cardi stopped by the crib. It's his fucking birthday today, so
yeah, happy birthday, homie.
Gunner hits me up. He's like, yo, we had a crib that we were gonna shoot his album cover at. It fell through. I heard you have a sick crib. This is when I'm living at Weed Lake, the fucking Cloud House, Ricegum, Alyssa, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, can we come shoot it there? I'm like, yeah, of course.
However, first and foremost, Ricegum was a
another
loser.
Option to her, so I'm like, you know what? I'm about to get some payback and just put her on the internet. So I set up the hidden camera, man, and I sit back down, and out of nowhere, again, he starts calling me, or whoever, it just starts calling my phone, and she finds the hidden camera. So I see you made it to the end of the video, man, based on a true story.
These videos mostly combated little kids.
After sleepless nights and non-stop researching, I came to the conclusion that these kids are still on the loose and out there making musicallys. There's so many kids out there that must be stopped, and it is my duty to put an end to this, or at least try to.
Not to say this content was high quality and he was changing the game and he was just coming up and he was just like, wow, he was just so talented. He was not. Most of the time, these commentary creators like Ricegum would just find a top 50 content creators list online, pick the cringiest white boys they could find for views, and then just do the reaction to it while the white boy just like danced with an underage girl, basically.
Is it too late now to say sorry? Yes, it is, because I just saw this, so it's too late. But like, I'm just curious, like, why is she making these musicallys when like her house is extra extra messy. Like, you can easily be just cleaning up.
If you were someone that didn't have TikTok installed at the time, which was the majority of social scrutiny revolving around content creation in the 2010s, the appeal of commentary in this era came with the degradation of teen TikTokers essentially, and just how fun it was to point and laugh and make fun of them. After all, the perception of TikTok was probably fueled by the fact that Lil Huddy existed in relevance to that initial stage of cringe. There were a lot of like Lil Huddy clones. The fact that I have to say Lil Huddy in 2025 is sad. Ricegum's groundbreaking model for success came with his formulaic styles of making videos on these children, replicating the dude bro type style of commentary and throwing in a 1-minute rap at the end.
Was looking stupid. You tried to pick that girl up, but you couldn't do it. I'm still trying to think cause I can't find your talent.
Where it's just him in an afro wig, literally doing blackface, just playing himself a beat so he could rap over it. The metaphor of like, it's digital minstrel. The allure of tuning into a Ricegum video was the temptation of asking his viewers to comment who would be next. Like an epic rap battle video. Who's next? You decide. But it's just real people. He's doing this on little TikToking children.
And tweet me if Jacob ever drops a diss track back at me, so I can drop another diss track.
Before doing a video surrounding Danielle Bregoli, Ricegum would find huge success in his first These Kids Must Be Stopped video. This motivated a then vlogging and streaming Ricegum to segue into commentary, where then Ricegum would grow from 100 to 200 to 1 million almost in the span of a year. And this was someone that wasn't supposed to segue into popular culture. Ricegum was already horrible on a perceptual basis with his streams. Ricegum's streams normally consisted of an incel type shock value present in the minds of men before we had a word that we could really call it. Famously degrading women and bringing on corn stars on stream to do the same thing, make them a public spectacle for his audience.
I told this dude no, I don't want it, and then like I was like drunk, and then hella people.
What the No, but did it feel good though?
No, I didn't.
Damn.
It was
like how long was it?
His cocky behavior and attitude, however, would be kicked up tenfold. As his fame progressed, his ego grew ever more so.
Good that I literally made 8 different variations of it, and I was
Algorithms have enabled codified acts of predatory behavior to be rewarded as a whole. Bad Baby was similarly exploited in this way. After the terror of Dr. Phil, she went on to have a back and forth with the Ricegum.
These Kids Must Be Stopped, Part 9.
Danielle, so Ricegum recently dropped a diss track about you. You have a response to that?
His face looks like a toenail.
That's it, man. I'm sick of this girl.
Question. Do you want to do a regular interview, or do you want to do an interview that's a regular interview but starts out with us talking about the Ricegum shit that happened today?
Ricegum's platform of 5 million would see him having collaborations with longtime famous stars, both in and out of notoriety, who would go on to be entertainment leaders in the digital algorithm, like KSI, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, Summer Rae, Lele Pons, Alyssa Violet, Amanda Cerny, FaZe Banks, Keemstar, Deji. His platform was so big, he was given a Super Bowl commercial.
Yes.
What?
Please just go look in that map.
My God, man. Hey, you saw that bit I made on you?
In the fucking Super Bowl.
Apparently, you don't count your chickens too soon, but I did film a commercial. It's being aired in the 4th quarter.
Oh my God, I'm gonna be so hyped once it comes on. Everyone in that room is
Back then, the Ricegum feature was actually like worth something. How times have changed.
Soon enough, he was nearing 10 million subs. We're very far from the times of when Biggie would have to freestyle for attention.
Yo, instantly we blaze trees.
The internet has made interacting with art a whole new genre. And with his eyes set on Danielle Bregoli, he dropped.
You just broken, you sad little girl. I don't know what you wanna beef about. You are not what you tweet about. You are just a rat-looking girl who Twitter just made a meme about.
On the other side, we have Danielle Bregoli, 13 years old and swept up in the trauma, steadily building a platform around her newfound success as a clip.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Huh?
Catch me outside. How about that?
But at this point in time, she was still the catch me outside girl. A meme not to really be taken seriously on internet culture. Like, she was just kind of be making fun of because of these clips. I mean, look at them.
And all these hoes laughing like something funny.
She's talking about the audience that they're laughing at her.
However, Ricegum's stature in a public zeitgeist opened up Bad Baby to a world star audience. Soon afterwards, having her viral catchphrase being remixed by Suede the Remix God.
How about that? Catch
creator of the Thanksgiving national anthem, and many other influential sound bites in the zeitgeist of 2010s culture, on top of being attacked by commentary YouTubers across the board. Call it what you will, but Bad Baby was in a perfect firestorm of publicity too. The 2010s era of YouTube was defined by the influencers who could segue into a mainstream culture, and music was a big target of people like Jake Paul, KSI, Logan Paul, Ricegum, Danielle Bregoli, and many others. Ricegum was a key to an axis of culture in himself, having charted on billboards already and proving to churn out massive success.
How do you and Jake Paul go into the biggest war that ever exists on YouTube? My role in this house, the guy... Holy shit.
What's your name? What do you want to say to Rice? I love you. Hey, high five.
Obviously, his persona online, the character that he plays is fucking...
So I want to make sure I understand what you were trying to say. When you said, I guess, maybe culture being embodied by figures of stature, are you kind of talking towards like the idea that because we're in an influencer economy, some people become like their entire personhood becomes kind of like they become like a mascot of a certain like aesthetic or a certain like subculture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like basically like their actual, possibly like natural personality becomes like an outfit.
The popularity of online rap battles in the form of drama would further the public spectacle of a new age of digital minstrelsy. After all, hip hop's continued relevance on YouTube helped birth Ricegum, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and KSI at a time where influencers were taking over LA.
But it gets sort of weird because anytime that you copy something, you lose a little bit of that fidelity, right? So it always will turn into caricature more often than not. And when you sort of juxtapose that other intersection that intersection of blackness, and you have people who are outside of the culture trying to show that they like this streamer by, maybe unintentionally or not, like appropriating some aspects of the culture, but they're like, no, like, Kai Cenat, I just really like Speed. It gets weird. It's weird because you at both times feel like you are liked for being your own person, right? I feel this especially like in the world of like YouTube. You feel like your audience is there because they like you as a person, but also you are very much aware you may be one of the few examples of blackness they interact with on like a daily basis.
We had like very hot flashes of this in the 2000s with like Soldier Boy. You know what I mean? Like going viral and getting his like little dance. Is it like the Superman dance? There were people in Edmonton doing the Superman dance. Like it was
with the baggy hoodies. Did y'all also have the
with the
hoodies? Like with the two time sized hat to the back?
Yeah.
That's crazy on Hunter's part.
Yeah.
But
And we had flashes of this growing up, and I want to say to that sense, like I can't even hate on the public spectacle of joining in hype, because even hip hop as an art movement, and a lot of art movements were set in time periods because of the connotation of like black, where there was like a lot of mistreatment in terms of like segregation with country, or the brutal reality of like a post America segregation, going through redlining and like throwing a lot of black communities in certain areas in New York. Like rap above this was also, it's a way of instilling hope in despair too, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, rap is a trade, right? The reason why rap persists so much is that it's possibly the most valuable and not for no reason most profitable black trade there has been in the past 2 centuries, right? And what I mean by when I say trade,
that's
I mean
so funny how you describe it as a trade,
right?
Because I was like,
go for it, sure.
Okay,
I'm calling it as trade specifically because like when you think about rap, like hip hop, I would say like is technically like the aesthetic of rap, right? But rap itself as a trade is something that like when I was growing up, and like I'm on the younger side, like we really take it back to what we know about our hip hop history. It's like when you wanted to become a rapper, yeah, a lot of times it was because you felt like you couldn't hoop and you couldn't sell drugs and you wasn't going to college. So it's like, but you did learn that, hey, if I applied myself, if I applied my ability to write and to perform, I could use my own abilities to generate capital to get myself out of a bad situation, right? And through that, both through the action of becoming a signed rapper and rapping itself, like sort of generated, as you said, like optimism within the hood, right?
Yeah.
So that's to say that rap songs also like gave people the energy to get through their day, but also the idea that the mythos of a rapper also instilled in like all our communities, like, you know what, yeah, like we can kind of do the impossible, or we can be valued for what comes out of our own soil.
This meant that Danielle Bregoli was able to simultaneously exist as a spectacle and a bastardization of culture in a public zeitgeist. Essentially, she was a minstrel. Where I feel for the scrutiny she garnished as a child, we have to remember the social strife of rap is removed when placed on a Ricegum or a Bad Baby. We're in a digital age which allows individuals unlimited access to black culture in ways we've never seen before, allowing influencers of the highest stature to become the central figureheads of whatever art movement they please. This allowed the utilization of black culture as a marketing tool. Danielle's YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify would accrue almost millions of streams and followers almost overnight. However, she didn't exactly segue immediately into rapping. After being centered in Kodak Black's music video Everything 1K, now almost at like 50 million views, Danielle Bregoli would be empowered to have her own stint in the rap game. A primed YouTube ready for influencers to make the jump, or influencers who already made the jump like Ricegum, KSI, and Logan Paul. Heavily degraded, nevertheless the jump was still there. It would see Bad Baby releasing her first song, These Ho. Like ho, but hoax, because it has an X at the end of it. Ricegum reacted to that too. The whirlwind surrounding the art movement of YouTube at the time allowed for a face like Bad Baby to segue from a Twitter meme to a figurehead that would bring serious collaborations from rappers like T.Y. $, an artist with almost 22 billion Spotify streams. Their song, Trust Me, would go on to accrue another 50 million views. Linking up with Tory Lanez before Megan Thee Stallion. I do not approve of this man and this man's face. I'm sorry for showing you this man's face, but he was popular for a little bit. Which would go on to accrue another 40 million views, collaborating with Lil Baby, landing another 60 million views, NLE Choppa, another 20 million. But too often we're swept up in the spectacle, giggling or laughing along. Have we forgotten how black this whole setup was? How much hip-hop history contributed to Danielle Bregoli's rapid rise? Ricegum's, KSI's, Logan Paul's, Jake Paul's. A lot of things start making a lot of sense when you start centering the art culture of hip-hop in a white person's view, in degradation. Of course you get a Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, if those are the people that are dictating what you're seeing in a cultural zeitgeist of blackness. Danielle Bregoli's rapid rise and situation in rap culture was also how she'd come to own 7 different properties and becoming a multi-millionaire, so shout out to her. But stepping back and examining the broader cultural zeitgeist, you could also say the rap game for black femmes was in a very different state. You see, Danielle Bregoli, although having a very rough segue into the industry, can be paralleled with a star like Doechii, who's also on YouTube and trying to make her way into the music industry. Now, Danielle Bregoli and Doechii being prominent figures in 2025 are for very different reasons, obviously. The assemblage of a berry is what Danielle Bregoli is, but Doechii with 2 eyes knows the dirt of the ground it strews from like the back of her hand. I don't know if my Zoom audience knows this, but I actually met Fenswa when I moved out from Edmonton to Vancouver, and I was walking in the gay street. I forget what the gay street's called. And I look over and I see you with your friend, and I'm like, oh, Denise. And then the connection from there, we just like linked up and we became friends off of that. But I would say that same experience of a perception of blackness is what like drawn us to be so close together, and that's what's
kept me attached to, I guess, relative experiences of community for a lot of my life. But you've lived in Vancouver. Like, I only met you a year and a half ago, and I've been wearing your shirt since then. Like, you know, like,
Exactly.
what, with your experience of Blackness, being situated in Vancouver as a Sudanese person, how was it like growing up?
I want to skip to when I got older, but I'll tell you about my past. I want to say that when I was older, whenever I passed Black people, we do the nod, you know what I mean? But like growing up, I was raised around a lot of different cultures, like around Mexicans, around white people, around like Native Americans and Indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a scoop of like lots of cultures happening at once. And, you know, sometimes there was racism and stuff, which I didn't really understand. But around my siblings more, it was like a thing of them playing like Mary J. Blige or like the Black Eyed Peas or, you know, those kinds of songs that I just grew up around.
Jackson. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a really wholesome experience. It doesn't matter what the song was about, whether it was about like, you know, sex and drugs or whatever, or pure poetry. It was always something that meant a lot to me, no matter what it was.
Doechii, a decade ago, would start her YouTube journey, posting covers and vlogs on her channel. However, almost from the jump, Doechii had bigger plans. Her childhood was saturated by the artistry of Black culture, which surrounded her. She was in gospel choir at a young age, which sprung her to do things like take music.
You want to be a nigga. You want to roll in the whip with your Black friends on the snap, but you don't really want to live in them villas. Oh, and you can post on IG that
a future Grammy Award winner was on YouTube doing story times alongside people like Ricegum and Alyssa Violet, who were doing the same thing, but garnishing millions of views, by the way. After 36 videos in multiple different eras as a YouTuber, including a little couples era which was cute to look back at, she hit 10K subscribers, meanwhile making performances here and there. She never really went all in on her career until finally she was fired. This was in the span of 6 years. Doechii was feeling the weight of expectation, a newfound form of retention faced with the digital algorithm, just like all those other hip-hop artists from all those years ago. But she was also facing a newfound form of retention faced with the digital algorithm. She had to hustle in a very different way. While Danielle strung together luck from a flurry of viral, once-in-a-lifetime moments that positioned her as a child star, Doechii had a very different route. And I don't mean to clash two journeys in order to make one seem more worthwhile or more paramount than the other. Because at the end of the day, Danielle Bregoli was still a victim. People waited until she was 18 to subscribe to her OnlyFans account when she was 14, where she made $1 million on the first month. This whole timeline, she was 14 to 18, living in an intense timeline of scrutiny under a gaze which propped her up for very pedophilic reasons sometimes. Very disingenuous, degrading, and very unfair standards of cultural normalcy placed on her while she was going through all of this abuse. The spectacles we create are often also coated in layers of misogyny, pedophilia, and exploitation too, while Doechii was being overlooked in the algorithm. How much creativity is undermined by these algorithms, propping up people who in the public zeitgeist perform in new ways for attention that we face as artists, acting as the faces of marketing, utilizing Blackness as tools. Now we have Twitch streamers with artists like Little TJ on Playboy Max's stream, Offset on Kai Cenat's stream, Ice Spice, 50 Cent, Lil Wayne, Annalie Choppa, Nicki Minaj, Cleo Choppa, with even streamers like YouTubers of the past segueing into music. Hopefully I find my set of creatives, my Black community, and all of that. But at the end of the day, what I'm finding out about the internet is, I guess, Blackness in its nuances are more purely felt in a subjective interaction. You know what I mean? Like, I could do discourse online about digital minstrelsy, but the replication or the performance of Blackness is something that I can't easily give to somebody, right? I can't give the feeling of me giving a basketball to my little sisters and them dribbling it, and then like a month in they're doing crossovers and stuff, and I'm watching the same, I guess, subjective love of this sport that wasn't placed on me all those years ago replicated, but instead of Kobe Bryant, it's me to my little sisters, right? And that's something beautiful I can't really describe, and we're so devoid of it in Canada.
You know what I mean? A lot of our history in Edmonton purposefully erases a lot of Black history. I know in Vancouver, y'all actually kind of learn about slavery and like some instances of Blackness, but like in Edmonton, it's like wiped off the map until you go to university, where you learn about MLK and Malcolm X and the civil rights movement and all that. But so to me, it's always been like there's a purposeful barrier even of perception of what I'm looking at because I can't get the inner nuance of it because I'm not around these people, right? The same feeling of like, well, those people look like me. I'm connected with them, but I'm disconnected at the same time. In the diaspora Blackness in the Canadian experience, I guess, to an artist like you, how has it been traversing those waters?
I would say it's a little bit difficult because there's not too many Black people here at all to like embrace the culture with. But also you do get people from other cultures being like, I love like the way that you move, the way that you live, the way that you express yourself. And I would say that that kind of puts in place for Black people that I haven't met yet. I mean, I feel like I'm getting a lot of I don't know the word for it. I would say I'm getting a
Interaction?
lot of interaction and like encouragement from other people and other cultures. But then again, it's a thing where like the experience here is sometimes you may be called the N-word and other times people are lifting you up.
Yeah.
And it's it's a hard thing to navigate with different people in the city. And it's such a difficult thing to be like, what if this person is going to call me the N-word if I express myself in this way? Or what if this person actually encourages me? And trying to navigate that has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. But at the same time, you have to be vulnerable. You have to push through those moments and be like, I'm still going to be who I am for the simple fact that I am an artist and I'm going to express rawly like what I am.
For my last question, relating to your continued artistry and your continued experience of Blackness, as you're creating, as you're going out, as you're trying to put the same, I guess, light of Black culture, be it in your own way, into the world, in with your rap career, because to me, I've been struggling with the thought or ideation, I guess, of being some type of figure of like stature, like embodying that figure in some kind of way, because like throughout the years it's been embodied a little goofily by like Jake Paul coming all in like a public zeitgeist, and like it's really been inside of hip hop, or I guess you could also say niche subjective art cultures of Black movements like country to like rock and roll, like all these things that have been co-opted of Black figures coming in and adding to it, but also their kind of perception of self being altered to be like Jesus figures in Blackness, right? Like when we say Tupac, we talk about Tupac's masculinity, Tupac's figure as like a West Coast icon, but he was actually from the East Coast, and he actually like talked about being gay a lot, right? So like though even the way we think about Tupac is so like dissuaded in a cultural zeitgeist. So for you, when it comes to being authentic, when it comes to being genuine, and when it comes to keeping art yourself, how's that like in the digital age of the internet?
Well, first of all, I'd say you can't keep yourself in a box. You absolutely cannot. That's not going to work out for you, and it's not going to be like substantial for you in the future because you're putting yourself in a box if you think about it. And you're just going to have to open yourself to making mistakes and failing fast. And that's completely okay. You just have to keep going and strive to be who you truly are, which is yourself. And I think I've always been like rebellious in some sort of way growing up. And as a teenager, I've been rebellious. So I've always been like, no, I want to do art. No, I want to sing. No, I want to play games. I don't want to listen to you. And I don't want to listen to your opinions about me because they're not valid. And I always had that faith in myself that I would be something great, and I know it now.
So I guess I'd say in the age of digital art, Blackness is just altogether a different experience that you have to delve into. The LimeWire, MP3, iPod Nano generation is like no more. It's very far in the rear. We live in an age where an algorithm can virtually connect everyone with their views, identities, and all that all on the screen. Whereas hip hop was a relative experience in a overarching degradation of societal blackness, you know?
Yeah. We're old school pirates for sure.
My experience with black culture was, you know, with the avatars of influence, like, you know, Soldier Boy, Pin Dropping, Cat Daddy, early Chief Keef, you know, the Rihanna downloads on my MP3. Like my mom playing Michael Jackson in the car on the way to church. You know, me and my cousins getting roped into basketball because one of us got a college sponsorship in the US, and that was like the coolest thing to us, you know, as Sudanese people living in Edmonton. I just want to ask, what was it like with your experiences with black art?
So I'm a first generation Ghanaian American.
I'm from South Africa. I recently moved to Canada like 2-3-ish years ago.
I mean, I wouldn't say I've had the same experience because I am mixed. Definitely different.
My experience with blackness is rooted in like a highly Christian conservative, like I don't even know, mindset. Like you're telling me, oh yeah, you listen to Michael Jackson as you go to church. I was a part of the generation that was calling any black celebrity Illuminati exposed. Like the only time we were allowed to listen to Beyonce growing up was Single Ladies. I had to sneak my entry into blackness. Like it's always
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. I don't know. You know, just being on social media and stuff, like looking at people's work, there's not a lot of representation or a lot of black artists. So every time like I come on my page and I see like someone creating like, I don't know, art and they're black, I'm like, holy shit, that's so rare. Which is so sad, even though that's more for like, from like an international standpoint, because, you know, I'm not just watching social media from creators in Canada.
Like I just listened to a bunch of music growing up from extremely different genres. My mother at the time was she was I'd call her African American because she grew up in America she lived in America for like 20 years. So she was influenced heavily by like American like gospel music, R&B, all that, and she brought that into my perspective, and I was like, these people, who's this? Who's that? So it's just like this whole big playground of like aesthetic and music. And I'm not gonna lie, like being black, I feel like I have like a cheat code because it's like I'm not African American, but like I can do the things and say the things and like be the things because it's like there's no like canceling.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is a performance, right?
Exactly. I'm like, yeah, I am black, and I'm just like getting to connect with all the different definitions of what it means to be a black artist and show up authentically as a black artist. And I just find it like fun and exciting, and I have like literally no idea where it's gonna go because I will lie, like being South African, there's not many people to like look up to. Like there's not a lot of people in the field of music in the way that we're doing it now. So it's just like this open space to do whatever you want. And I don't know, I find that like freeing and exciting and super fun. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, I'm having a good time so far.
Like one of my greatest shame is I found out about Michael Jackson through Glee. I was like, ooh, what's this? Yes. Like I remember I was watching Glee and I heard this beautiful, beautiful melody. And it was like the Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, I'm sorry, it's my truth. I was like, I love this. What is this music? Whole time it was Michael Jackson. And the fact that even though it was commodified and washed down through Glee, I was still able to taste the brilliance of black art even when it was washed down.
That's interesting because, you know, we all have really subjective experience inside of a monolith of blackness. You know what I mean?
No, it's kind of the way I grew up. I grew up with rap and R&B playing all the time. Like my dad would strictly only play rap and R&B. So it's kind of like when you're raised in an environment where that music's always playing, it's kind of normal. So when I see like songs go viral or I hear black music playing, which it kind of always is when you're out, I don't know, it feels normal to me.
But like without our phones and without the internet and without things like this, like we wouldn't have seen ourselves in certain avenues that we have placed ourselves in. Like one thing that the internet has done, and I guess, you know, TikTok influencer culture, like all those people, shout out to all of them, is the amount of pathways it's opened up for content creators. You know, as a kid, I never imagined myself doing YouTube and getting to 100,000 subscribers.
I know that's right. Subscribe, guys. Help Term get that flag.
Yeah, but it's connected me to so many people like you, Fick, FD, Shanspere, Little Bill, Colormind, Lonnie, Foreign Man. You know, without the internet, I wouldn't have the community I have today. And I think there's a merit in giving Black artists more pathways into artistry than the limited avenues that, you know, we might have saw in the past that I saw as a kid. It seems like you didn't tour subjective inferences of Blackness, you know, as and now we're seeing them as YouTubers, TikTokers, influencers, driving the culture in a million different ways. You know what I mean? Kai Cenat is not anything adjacent to hip hop except of the perception of Blackness. You know what I mean? It's the way he carries himself. It's the rap artist he brings in. It's all of that. Like things are like hot flashes now in an algorithm of stimuli, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And I feel like Blackness, I guess, is an egg cracked on top of it. I too also looked at the screen and I was like, oh God, I've seen a lot of these Black artists do amazing work on TikTok, on YouTube, and I also want to do my own art. And then, you know, I started producing and like posting my own art. But like you said, it was a workshop. Like I had help from FD, Foreign, like all these people. You know what I mean? So my performance of Blackness was you know, still at the same time spurred by this sensationalization of the algorithm, but also comes from a very real performance of community. You know what I mean?
I feel like when we're talking about like performance of Blackness, it's more gender performance than like entertaining performance. I think I'd like to say, and the reason, like, because I was interested by your egg metaphor in the fact of saying, like, you came from TikTok. I started most on YouTube. We were always gonna perform Blackness, right? Especially like niggas like us. Let's be real, like niggas, we were always like, there's no way we're not being coded as Black. So like often what we're really talking about in performances in our own contexts, right, is like you have definitely came across, this is how the wider world sees my Blackness and seems to be what they are like globbing onto. And due to the fact that we live within an algorithmic paradigm, like we have learned to play up the parts of our Blackness that the algorithm seems to think is more universal than others.
I'm mad you're not wearing a tech right now.
Oh, you don't say no more.
Like
I'm like fresh. Yo,
she do like a like you tuck.
They want me, they all on me.
And it's red too.
Oh, you like that?
That's my favorite color.
Stop it. My favorite color is, hold on. My favorite color is red. My favorite color is red as well.
I guess with continuing a hope or a spark of artistry, you know, with your passion and your craft, seeing like artists get like hundreds of thousands of views maybe like in a month, or like millions of eyes, and do you feel pressure to also conform and make artistry in the same way that these artists have for retention or for a job, or, you know, just in your educational fields?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, like, especially within social media, it's tough. Like, if the algorithm doesn't like you, she doesn't like you. Like, I was posting more consistently, I would say in like 2023 on my Instagram, and that's where I got like a lot of like views and like whatever. I was seeing like people were actually seeing my work, which is great. It's not why I posted it, but it was great. But I feel like I kind of got into the loop where it's just like, oh, a year later I'd start posting again, but I'm never consistent because I'm working and I'm a student. It's hard. And I wouldn't get the same kind of engagement, and it's been really hard to get like a lot of engagement if you don't spend so much of your time kind of obsessing over it and making sure you're posting on schedule and everything like that. So it is hard to maintain like that quota, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. At this point right now, I'm just kind of like, I'm just enjoying life. If I don't feel in the right headspace to make art or just post art in general, I'm not going to post because I want to make art for me and not for social media purposes, you know? And if people see it,
I'm a millennial, so like I have that weird hybrid experience of like I grew up, I was also poor. So I grew up on physical media and like the radio for my formative years, but then like, you know, 2008 2009 LimeWire fucking hit, and like, you know, the world changed forever. And that's when I think that's why I think about this often. I think that's why specifically I became a music head rather than like, I've met other people who are around my age that are like really into film, but they're also like, you know, they love their pirate activities or they love their life on the seven seas, but they use most of that energy for films. Some people do it with video games. Some people do it with books, right? But I think LimeWire coming along like at the age it was when it like hit my demographic, turned me into a person who like obsessively wanted to like consume music.
It's so much fun. I'm like, it's fun. Like,
Let's go. I love that answer.
Because it's not really in Johannesburg, which is where I'm from. A lot of it is found in like Cape Town and stuff. And I haven't been to Cape Town, still to this day. But yeah, no, finding my own artist, I guess, identity. I looked a lot towards like Black African American women. They really were just like the embodiment of like hip hop and like culture and like fashion and like music and all that. And I had to sort of like make my place here, like especially like in the Western world, like in Canada, because we met like just after I finished doing a drag show, and you also came to a drag show, your first one. I remember that.
Yeah,
And
literally my first one. Yeah,
your first one. I was like, yeah. It was like I sort of had to like dial back the Africanness, like starting off, because it was not because like out of choice, just because it was very it was met with a lot of, I don't know, like confirmations, like confirmation bias for Western people. Like they were like, oh, Africa, and they already had an idea of exactly what it was like, and
I remember you made this joke on stage
like,
about Nelson Mandela, and it was only
I
like
don't know that
me,
guy. And I'm
Fenswa,
like,
and my
what do you
sister like laughing,
mean?
and
Even
everyone
our
just like
activists.
staring. I know I said this before, and y'all called me y'all called me out, but even our activists didn't get as much eyes as a lot of our online activists have in the millions of views of metrics that a lot of Black online activists have on like TikTok and everything. So we're living in a very, very new reality where we're having to kind of think for ourselves and discern what Blackness is, one, in tandem with our subjective experiences, with everyone around us, and two, as a whole. Like there's a macro and micro there. How would you say the internet has changed how you perceive Black artistry or artistry in general?
I'll say doing like what I ended up spending my life doing, which is like critically talking about art, was the barbershop. Like I met my barber Ali when I was 10 years old. My dad, because he was my dad's barber. And like every week or every other week that I would go down there for my haircut, they would be arguing about some album, some song, some top five. Like I fucking remember like when the Carter 3 dropped, and like there was this like we stayed in the barbershop like an extra hour after my haircut, just talking about like why T.I. somehow was better than Lil Wayne, even though the Carter 3 just dropped. And I remembered this because it was the first time I had like a strong opinion, right? I felt like, because these are like grown men to me, right? Ali's actually like literally almost exactly 20 years older than me. So I'm telling you, like, these are like 30-year-olds like talking about this art. And because I had, through dubious means, gotten the Carter 3 CD from my public library, I listened to that album, and for the first time I was like, yo, I disagree. I think we didn't have capping at that time, but I'm like, I think you're capping. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Lil Wayne actually a pretty good rapper, and actually the Carter 3 might be his best album, and actually when you compare it to the Carter 2, and then I started like learning how I needed to articulate, not only to be persuasive, but to be listened to, right? Not only to be heard, but yeah, actually I like that better. Not like I started learning how to articulate myself, not only to be heard, but to be listened to, right? To like take up space while also being able to get my points off, which is hard when you're the baby. But like that's how I think that's a real big reason for why I am good at talking or good at having takes. Because when you grow up in that barbershop culture, right? Like a real big tenet is your ability to have a take and like defend it.
Yeah. And I want to say like one thing that's made art equally exciting is like the amount of pathways it's opened up for content creators. As a kid, I'd never imagined myself getting to YouTube and getting to the amount of subscribers I got to. It's connected me to so much people. It's connected like it's done a lot. Without the internet, I wouldn't have the community I have today. And I think there's a merit into giving like Black people or people in general more pathways into artistry than the more limited avenues we had in the past. You know, we didn't see people like in roles of like the video essayists. Like, can you name a Black video essayist before FD?
I should be able to, but I can't right now because like FD said FD definitely told us like two. They were
Okay,
like two
FD
people.
told us two.
They were like two people, and it was light skin.
Okay,
like,
I'm gonna do a little edit
right?
where I do a DM to FD and see if
Yeah, like no, like you now have to
Yeah.
put up the guy like during the edit. Like he was light skinned. He had like a receding hairline, but he was good. Like I remember like after FD.
As much as we are consistently bashing spaces like Twitter and TikTok, without those spaces, I would not be seeing all of the alternative Black people that I love so much. Oh man, I love TikTok. I love TikTok because the algorithm be so niche, so niche. No other app could give me Black girls with ears, pink hair, best friends running down the street. If you can give me another app that gonna put that right on my face, okay. But TikTok has been the only place that lets creatives like that. For years, I've been shouting about Black magical girls. For years! Who do we have? We have Ayi from Wings Club and the other girl from Lolly Rock. Because of online spaces like TikTok, Tumblr, and Twitter, people who I wouldn't even imagine exist are making art specifically catered towards me. There's a whole new animation called I Don't Want to Be a Magical Girl Anymore. And it has two unambiguous Black girls in a magical girl cartoon. Where else but the internet can I find stuff like that? TikTok has made so many people into household names. Like my favorite girl, Doechii. I found Doechii through a TikTok. Now me and my homegirls bumping anxiety.
I did find Doechii through a TikTok song, which is wild. Because like you know back then you'd go out on like LimeWire and like download whatever song your older cousin was playing. But now it's you could say like culture and art has taken very different forms in the algorithm, you know. Like Black artistry is there in the TikTok dances, it's there in the advertising, it's there in the popular language that all the commentators are using. A lot of stars dive in and out of Blackness for like even like marketing, you know, with like with the trends, the TikTok trends and stuff. It seems Blackness
The Black TikTok trends.
It seems like back then Blackness was a more secluded experience, but the sheer size of the interaction, which happens on the internet on an everyday basis, makes it harder to have like an interpersonal experience with culture. You know what I mean? Certain discourses about racism, gender, and identity that should happen like personally, like with your friends
the
around
baka
you
discourse
and everything. It now happens all online, you know. On a digital scale, how is it like growing up Black in the age of the algorithm? And how would you say it's changed?
Well, I feel like we talk about this a lot, but even though I was extremely sheltered as a kid, I knew that being Black on the internet was just not the vibes. We were just talking about I don't even know if I can say this word, but oh God, like that whole day and age where you could not log onto no internet site without them talking about, the and they making mustache man jokes. Hello, as a young preteen on the internet being faced with all this rampant, blatant racism. Obviously, there's still racism now, but back then, being Black was the oh no. It was just a oh no. But I definitely feel like it's way, 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 way better now. Because even though we have huge racism problems, like we stay talking about it, I feel like at least there's more Black like people being on a platform. Before I really felt like Black people and other marginalized groups were the punching bags, but now there's some people with platforms, you know?
The internet has changed the way I perceived pathways by showing me that it really is about making your own opportunity. Because I won't say it like made me realize something, but it confirmed something that now that I'm like getting up there in age or like getting up there into adulthood, I'm like, yeah, no, this is might be a key to life of some sorts. But it's like now that we're post internet, right? Now that the internet is here and the internet is the fourth dimension of reality, your audience is waiting for you, or like your tribe is waiting for you. And like the best way for a person who is not born rich to find success that doesn't necessarily need to be monetary, like just like communal, emotional, whatever, on the internet, is like you create your tribe. And the cool thing about the algorithm is that it does want to group like people together. So I used to think that which is the way that it works a bit more in real life, whereas like you need to identify in groups and out groups. You need to identify like the totem pole, and then you need to try to fit in between there. And then if you like rise to prominence in one, maybe you can try to affect change or whatever. But over here, it's all horizontal for the most part. And like you're not trying to, it's not a zero-sum game. And because it's not a zero-sum game, you're not worried about, I never ever worry about the people that are making videos around me, right? I never feel like I'm in competition because I'm like, no, I already know the stronger my internal vision is, the stronger the vibe I want to create is, the more attractive it will be to the people that ultimately also like my same vibe, because everybody weird on the internet. So now for the first time in my life, I'm not weird.
When it wasn't like that before. I really feel like even though we consistently talk about how like YouTube shadow bans us when we want to talk about anything black or black adjacent, or us just being black is enough to spice it up, I still have been able to build a platform using YouTube despite all of the challenges, being a visibly black person. Obviously, I've had people tell me that like if I did like a faceless channel, like with my ASMR voice, I do better. But like, y'all here for me, like you're here for my face. This is my face, my black face. Well, my face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the other type of black face.
Karma's
Yeah.
important.
I'm not Drake.